You want to know the real reason why no one's listening to your stories? Most business owners, they don't bother digging into the deepest, most important stories. They content themselves with using their origin stories, just like that was just another box ticked, and they move on to the next thing, the next box to tick in the marketing toolbox. What they're failing to do is create a genuine connection with the audience that give them any reason to stick around. The result is flat, boring communication without any personality that fails to connect with the very audience they want to connect with. So, in this video, I'm going to show you how to put out those small, sometimes inconsequential stories from behind your imaginary sofas that help you build real connection with the people you want to talk to and build a business that actually lasts. So, why doesn't this work? Well, there's no real genuine connection because people might admire you, but they don't relate to what you do. As a consequence, no one sticks around. You know, if there's no loyalty, it's just passing traffic. You're just another brand as a result, and you become forgettable. You sound like everybody else, just part of the digital noise and the sea of same. And you miss the real question that your audience has is, does this person actually understand me and what my problem is? So when you don't share the vulnerable, specific stories that only you have, your audience can't see themselves in your journey. They can't relate to you. You create distance instead of connection. And in a connection-led environment, as we are in today, that's probably not a good thing to do. Serious error, even. And you become just another expert talking at them rather than with them. The secret to becoming an expert these days is actually not to sound like one. Perfection creates admiration. That may be what you're looking for, I don't know. But vulnerability creates loyalty. So, what should you include? Well, the journey, for want of a better word, it should actually show that moment you realise things were never going to be the same again and you discovered something that could help others. That is your origin story. That's the aha moment, where specificity meets generic. I realised in November 2020 that I had a story to tell after a list of circumstances, and that I could help other people tell it. But it doesn't stop there, because your personal stories will answer the unspoken questions basically that your audience has, and that is basically, can this person help me with this stuff, because your audience is sitting there waiting for you to give them a sign. The next thing, you also need to tell them how you realise that imperfection creates permission. Your setbacks give others permission to be imperfect, and tell people like imperfect because it shows you are like them. It gives them hope that you can solve their problem too. Now, the solution is in what I call, it's a timeline exercise, basically. It's a story discovery process. Now what is this? It's a systematic process where you map out your entire life and uncover the stories that you might think are too ordinary to matter, but they are in fact your secret power, your unfair advantage. Because the life you live today is, you think it's ordinary because it's the life you live. People that live the most extraordinary lives think their lives are quite boring because They are just their lives. It's life. But what is ordinary to you can be something quite extraordinary to somebody else. So the process, you break down your life into probably about 5-year chunks. Obviously, the older you are, the more chunks you're going to have. I've got quite a few. Your childhood, you can probably, childhood school years, you can probably count as one, but they are really important because that's when you learn the most. But anyway, for each of those periods, answer yourself these questions. What was your situation? What were you doing? You know, the outline stuff. You know, when you got your first job, when you left school, when you got I don't know, when you got married, when you had kids and stuff like that. That's easy. That's the framework. But then go deeper into what you were doing at any one particular time. Get specific. You know, it's one thing to say, "Oh, I struggled with whatever." You know, but this is a silly example perhaps, but at 2 a.m. eating cereal from the box in my pajamas, not that that happened to me, but it's specific. It's a specific incident that you can remember. What challenges did you face and how did you overcome them? Who were your mentors, your teachers, and your enemies as well? Surprisingly how important that is as well. What did you learn? What skills did you acquire? And write them out, specific skills, because I'm going to tell you why. You should do that in a minute. What were your personal victories and your defeats? Because often that's where the gold is. What were you scared of, with reason or not? And then what did you learn about yourself, both at the time and in hindsight, looking back? Now, once you've done that, you're going to need to put it all together. You're going to need to see the patterns. Ideally, you would do this with somebody else, somebody to whom you are not related, or somebody with whom you are not in a romantic relationship, because they know you too well, and they're likely to jump in and create connections that aren't necessarily there. So ask yourself this, and it's okay to do it by yourself. It's just a bit better to do it with somebody else. What are the common threads? How do you approach life? Are you a rebel or you do go with the flow? And both of those are okay. Where are the turning points? Where are the transformative experiences? Because that's the turning points and the transformations are where the stories lie. Obviously the big stuff, but also the little stuff as well, the little incidents that were of consequence to you, not necessarily to anybody else, but they formed who you are now. How does that inform how you work now? All that, of course, this is all going to, this and what kind of business owner are you? They're the kind of things that are going to reveal your pattern, your philosophies, your why, if you like. So what you will discover is the transferable skills from other related experiences, and I'll explain that one in a minute. The patterns that reveal your philosophy, your why, for want of a better word, and I don't particularly like the word why, but you know, it's everywhere. Stories that feel mundane to you, but are quite fascinating to others. I've got a whole load of stories about France that other people kind of get quite interested in, but for me, they're just life. The struggles that make you relatable instead of just admirable from afar, because people love to know, love to kind of connect and hitch on to other people's experiences. Gives them some kind of sense of validation. You know, this was pointed out to me. I didn't work this out myself, but it was pointed out to me that I'm a copywriter now. I've been a translator over the last kind of 30 years. Because I lived in France for 20 years. That has informed the way that I write, I approach my work and everything, not only being bilingual, but being bicultural. That's one hell of an advantage in my line of work. I've been a travel agent many years ago, in the 80s and the 90s, and that's a business travel agent. So I had regular relationships with clients. That's how I learned how to build relationships with clients. Before that, I've got a degree in history. I mean, this is 1981, we're talking about that, 46 years ago. And that taught me how to work out what's important, what's not important, see trends, interpret things, and a bunch of stuff like that. I could take it right back to when I was a kid. My father worked for the railways. We went to Spain. So I, as a 6 and 7 year old, I saw other kids speaking French, German, Spanish. I thought it was a bit weird. You know, they must think in English, don't they? You don't know what you don't know. I started learning French at school when I was 8, which was quite revolutionary at the time, pretty revolutionary now. But that set up a love of languages that has stayed with me throughout my life. Now, we tend to define ourselves by what we do now, and we ignore the whole load of stuff that's gone back in the past. But we are defined by all the things we've done in the past. There are things that you do now that you learnt possibly when you were a kid. That's why you go to school, you know, that's the purpose of school. So you learn stuff that you don't necessarily realise that you learnt. But it's really important. So why do you do this? Well, this isn't just market research, it's kind of therapy. It's a great way of poking the idea in the eye that you've done nothing important in your life, that you've done nothing of any kind of consequence and no one is interested in what you have to say. It also creates a bank of stories, authentic stories that are you, that no one can take from you, can't be replicated by anybody else, by your competitors, and it can also answer your audience's actual question. Can this person understand me? Does this person understand it? And can they do something for me? Now, there's a critical rule with this, is that you never publish anything that makes you uncomfortable. I've got a bunch of stuff that I've published in books from my childhood traumas. There's no big abuse or anything like that, but it's still kind of things that make some 4 and 5 year olds screwed up. I talked about them because I've got over them. There's other things that happened later in life that I'm not necessarily over with, and I'm not going to be talking about them. But if you can talk about a problem that you've solved that can help somebody else, go for it, please, because that's how you connect with people. So why does this work? Well, stories make people feel the way that you felt. You know, you're joining the conversation your prospects are already having in their heads. So if you can relate to what they are thinking with your stories, then you are halfway there. You know, specificity creates reliability. You know, the timeline exercise gives you specific details that the generic advice always lacks. You know, 2 a.m. in pyjamas eating cereals is always better than I worked hard. You know, we know you worked hard, but what does it feel like? What was it like? Vulnerability creates permission as well. The defeats that you show in your timeline, the failures, gives other people permission to be messy too. Because, spoiler alert, we are all messy. You know, there's nobody that lives a perfect life. I've yet to meet them anyway. Small stories answer real questions. Your ordinary struggles from the timeline prove that, well, to your audience at least, well, someone like me can do this, perhaps, you know. And pattern recognition builds trust. When audience see the thread connecting your stories to their struggles, then you're halfway there again. You're going to get all the way there with this as a start. So what actually happens when you do all this? Well, you get real engagement, you know, comments that say, oh, this is exactly me. Finally, someone who gets it, you know, instead of generic likes. I mean, likes are like, you know, they're fine. But it goes on and so someone likes something and moves on to the next thing. There's no engagement with you. Just because they like something doesn't mean they're engaged with it at all. The right people find you as well. Your stories will act as a filter, attract the people that you want to attract, and repel the people you don't want to work with. You're going to piss people off. That is fine, because it's a filter already. I'd rather piss someone off than attract someone who doesn't like me or I don't like, and I have a nightmare experience working with them. I'd rather we not start in the first place. You get permission-based connection as well. Your vulnerability will give them permission to be imperfect too, because it is okay. The business impact is you get warmer leads. People reach out to you because they already trust you. The statistic about 70% of the people that reach out to you have already made their buying decision. This is why, because they have built that trust up first. The conversations are easier, and the conversions as well are easier because they're not buying from a stranger. You don't have to go through half the justifications that you would have to do otherwise. You're buying from someone who gets them. They know that they've got, let's not go as far as say as a friend, but someone they can trust. And the word of mouth side to it as well. People will refer you simply because not of your credentials, but because of the way you made them feel. Not to drag out the old Maya Angelou quote, people don't remember what you did, they remember how you made them feel. And I can almost leave you with that. People don't remember what you did, they remember how you feel. So if this has resonated with you at all, I'd love to come on this journey with you. Do the YouTube stuff, like, subscribe, make a comment. I'd love to have a discussion with you about this. What do you feel about your deeper stories, your wider stories that you think are insignificant? And if you want to get started with working on your story, there's a free download, it's a free workbook, 39-page workbook in the description called Uncover Your Story. Go and download it. It's free. Gift on me. And I'll see you in the next video.